Hi, my name is Dr. Jacinta. I'm an agricultural extensionist. Welcome to my channel that takes a glance at the past, present, future, and technical issues in agriculture. Today's topic, we are looking at how to make your agribusiness crisis resilient, considering the lessons that we learned during the coronavirus pandemic. The coronavirus 2019, also known as COVID-19, was confirmed in Kenya in March 2020 when the farmers were struggling on how to control the locust menace. So this was catastrophe in succession. And although coronavirus did not directly impact on agribusinesses, its effect had socioeconomic effects indirectly on farming or agribusiness. One area that was affected was that of input supply, especially feeds, simply because the raw materials used to make animal feeds are imported from neighboring countries whose staple foods are not the same as those used for animal feed manufacturing, like maize. So you find that maize is the energy feed material that is used in feeds. We also have soybean, which is used as a protein source and is also imported. So the lessons learned here is that the input suppliers or the feed manufacturers have to look for local alternatives for maize, something which is not competing with food. For example, yellow maize. You can also try sugar beet for energy feeds. And for soybean, you can try sunflower, which does well in the country. The feed manufacturers also have to network with their sources of raw materials so that they don't have to travel all the time to go and get their supplies. It came out that after some time, although there was restriction of movement of people, cargo and other goods were allowed to cross the border. So if the feed manufacturers had good connection, they could still get their inputs. Another input that was affected was fertilizer, which is also imported. Most of the fertilizer used in the country is imported. And you find that sometimes manure, animal manure, complement or supplement the inorganic fertilizers. But in this case, when coronavirus was confirmed, it was in March, that is during the long rains. Manure was still in the animal sheds and it had been rained on and it was very heavy to transport, in addition to poor rural road network. So it came out clearly that there is need to carry out manure management. This can be done through the wet system, whereby you put the manure and water in an oxygen-free container and you get biogas, which you can use for household energy, and you also get slurry. That is a good fertilizer. If you don't have a biogas, you can also compost. But for you to be able to use this manure, you have to keep it at a shed so that it is not rained on and also the quality does not biodegrade. And you can also transport it to the use point so that during the rainy season when the rural roads are not passable, you will still be able to have access to fertilizer. There is also need to look at local fertilizer production and also other sources of fertilizer. For example, sewage. If it is properly treated, most of the microorganisms that can affect people are inactivated, and therefore the product can be used for crop trees. Slaughterhouses, especially those ones that slaughter large animals like cattle and camels, they also produce a lot of stomach contents. That is also a good fertilizer. These days, there is a lot of rabbit production, and rabbits produce a lot of urine, which is a foliar feed. So all these and others that can produce inorganic or organic fertilizers should be explored to counteract the effect of fertilizer in such a catastrophic season. One of the most affected input supply was the veterinary drugs and vaccines. This is also because there is high dependence on imports for the same, and it came out that there was acute shortage of some vaccines and drugs, and even some of them went out of stock. So the lessons learned here is that those people who are supplying these products, they should open branches in the country, production branches in the country. The local suppliers can also think of local production of vaccines and drugs. Also, for those who are in the field, when you come to treat animals, let's say you are using antibiotics, the recommended cycle is about 3 to 7 days, sometimes even up to 14 days. When there's an acute shortage or we foresee a shortage, then the shorter cycle, let's say 3 days, should be adopted so as you reserve the drugs for a time when they might be out of stock. The other issue that came out with the drugs and vaccines was the packaging and the sizes. You find that, for example, the poultry vaccines, you have packages of 100, 200, 500, and even 1,000 doses packs. Yet, most of the birds produced in the country are indigenous birds, which are kept by small-scale farmers at a rate of 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 birds. So you find like in this case there was an outbreak of pox vaccine, of pox disease, and the vaccines that were available ranged between 200 to 1,000. So you could find that a farmer with only 6 birds could take a pack of 1,000 doses, use only 6 doses, and throw away the rest. That was a lot of wastage. It's not good economically, environmentally, and also it is inappropriate. Farmers were also affected by the COVID. There was the outbreak of diseases. I've talked of pox. There was also rampant skin disease and foot and mouth in some parts of the country. There was acute shortage of feeds, or the prices went up. Marketing of their produce became a problem with the restricted movement. There was financial constraints because of lack of production or reduced production or wastage. And labor was in short supply because laborers tended to stay at home to comply with the stay-at-home requirement. So the lessons learned here is that farmers have to enhance use of other measures of disease control. Biosecurity is one of them, whereby you can put, let's say, like foot bath and vehicle bath at the gate. You can also put a quarantine on your farm. If there is an outbreak around there, you prohibit people and other animals to come in. And if they have to come in, they have got to go through or sanitize through the birds. You can also implement the hand washing and sanitizing of your various stores so that you don't move disease from one store to another, or one part of the farm to another, or from one flock to the other. Homemade rations are some of other things that can address the feed issues. Planting of high protein fodder and fodder trees like desmodium and tree lucerne will assist in counteracting high protein feeds like dairy meal if it is in short supply. Feed conservation is another way of ensuring that there is sustainable production during catastrophes. You can conserve feeds in form of dry feeds like hay or wet feeds like silage. Adoption of technologies that can assist in fast feed production are important. One of them is hydroponics, that you can use to produce feeds within 10 days or less than 10 days. Marketing was a big challenge, and extending shelf life of whatever product you have to look for appropriate method of extending shelf life as you plan to take your product to the market is important. Financially, farmers or agribusinesses are now encouraged to save so that for a rainy day or a catastrophic time like the COVID time, this one can be done through commercial institutions like banks and savings and credit cooperatives. It can also be done locally through systems like table banking, merry-go-round, and so on. Mechanization came out as an important issue to counteract the labor issue. For example, if a dairy farmer has 10 animals and he or she has a milking machine, this machine can be operated and the animals milked by only one household member. So mechanization and through appropriate technologies will be able to address the labor issue or can assist in addressing the labor issue. So this is a photo of hydroponic fodder, and I have said it can be produced within or in less than 10 days. All you need are seeds, water, and technical know-how, and you will be able to produce fodder that is good for almost all livestock. Name it: chicken, pigs, rabbits, cattle, sheep, goats, and so on. So you have to learn these technologies, adopt them, and use them appropriately. Marketers have to go online when there is restricted movement. You can still market your products. They have to network so that you don't have to travel all the time, and they need to put up storage facilities that can extend shelf life of products. Others are consumers. They are the end users of all the agricultural products. If you go to our dump sites, you'll find that about 25% of the waste is food waste. So we normally waste a lot of food in the country, and there is therefore need to minimize or to avoid food wastage. This can be done by just cooking what you need for a meal, and if you have excess, you preserve it so that you use it in the next meal or sometime later. To have food security during catastrophes, it's always good to have some long shelf life products in your store, like maize and beans that can store for a number of years if they are properly stored. And if there is a problem, then you will have food security. Food preservation, all methods should be explored appropriately according to what resources you have. If you have electricity, you can have a refrigerator. If you don't have, you can use the drying methods and any other method that preserves food. Hygiene in handling food or food materials is very important because clean food is not susceptible to microbial spoilage, and it also does not cause diseases. I'm sure you don't want to go to the hospital when there is restricted movement, and also when you don't have money because maybe you have been laid off from your job and for other reasons. So it's always good to observe food hygiene. Policymakers have a role to play. They have to formulate policies that will encourage local production. We have seen that our drugs are imported, our fertilizer is imported, our feed raw materials are imported. Why? We have the technical know-how, we have the capabilities, and we can be able to produce them locally if there is conducive environment. So policymakers have to take up this issue so that we are self-sustainable, or we are sustainable in our production systems. This brings me to the end of my presentation. If you have liked it, give it a thumbs up. And for you to continue getting alerts on upcoming issues, kindly remember to subscribe. Subscription is free. And thank you for being with me. Let's meet in the next presentation. Thank you.